Okay, here I have a car key for a Subaru XV, which is basically just the SUV version of the Liberty. I think these keys are used on Liberties and stuff. Now this one's sort of working intermittently when it comes to unlocking the doors. So I'm going to check the battery, and I suspect it might actually be the switch itself that's faulty. So these have a little slot there, which is where you should be able to put in a flat blade screwdriver or something and pop the thing open. Starting to come apart, and we should be able to get inside it. Just a clip together fitting, pretty dirty in there, so I could probably do with a clean. There it comes out, rather dirty. And what have we got now? Got little screws, I guess. So it looks like it's these small screws we take out, just little Phillips heads. Hopefully that'll get this apart. I'll put them on the back so I don't lose them. I assume there's some sort of watch battery or something in here. Oh, that's the actual battery cover. So it's a Panasonic CR1620. And I've got a little flat blade to flick that out. That just comes out pretty much. Check that, and hopefully it's still at 3 volts. Well, I guess it's probably better if it's not, since this thing's playing up. Yeah, still on the full 3 volts. As I suspected, I think this has got a worn out switch in it. Ah, here we go, something's coming apart, I think. Definitely a case that can be split there in some way. I'm not quite sure. I think this is another press fit case. Being super careful not to stab yourself with a knife. Yeah, it's another press fit type screwdriver. Might be a safe way to go. Okay, and we should, like pushing on the buttons, or oh, we've got another bit comes out here. Okay, so there's the plastic case, we've got some sort of rubber cover, which is the actual buttons, and finally we're down to our little switches. And what I'm thinking is, even if I can't get a replacement switch easily for these, I can probably swap a couple over. That's what I actually did. The one on my aftermarket one I've got for my car, when one of the switches played up, the other one's not even used for anything, so I just swapped the little micro switches over on the board, which is a little bit of a risky operation when they're surface mount, since you've actually got to remove one of them. There is a slight risk you'll damage the board or something if you're not careful, or put too much heat into it or something. Oh, I better not lose those little screws. I'll just put that to one side. I'll get all the dust out of this thing. It'll be a good start. But yeah, they're very tiny little switches. They're all the same, at least amongst this thing. I don't know if I can actually measure it and see if we can. I guess the other possibility is it's something to do with this thing not pressing right, but I doubt that's the problem. Doesn't look worn, or sometimes the rubber will break around these keys or something in some of these units. But they all look fine on this one, and you'll get a mechanical issue rather than an electronic one. Does seem to work fairly reliably. Not on that side so much, maybe. Oh, there it is. That seems fine. Maybe it's that one. Let's see, am I pressing the wrong one? Oh yeah, I might be, it's the one on that side, because these are upside down, so yeah, I think that was the one that that was one that was hard to do just then, I think. It certainly seemed like I had to press hard on that one. Yeah, that was the one. Often it seems to work after you've used it once or twice. So something's failing in the contacts, I think, but yeah, once it seems to start working, it keeps working again. It's a little dicky, I think. Could be my connections I'm making, but other possibilities, the solder joints on it aren't 100%, but they seem to look alright. So I don't know whether I should risk trying to remove that. I don't know if they've glued them down. Just double check that again. Yeah, so that's the unlock one. And yeah, that's the boot. Normally it's just a lock and unlock, which does the tailgate on this vehicle anyway. Okay, so that's the one there with the, I'll just put some black on that so I know which one it is. And I guess if we turn on the soldering iron, let's see if I can actually remove that switch and just swap it with the other one. Possibly have to try and solder both pins on one side together. But I'm guessing that's either got dust down in the contacts or they're just worn out. But I think that's the easiest solution, just swap the, if I can without damaging anything. Which is not so easy when this is such a tiny little thing. Get some new solder on those pins. And if I'm just pushing it sideways, that's starting to lift. I'm just pushing on the actual black button bit that's sticking up. Try not to burn myself in the process. Just gently lift up and then do the other side again and just work your way up, because you don't want to rip the pads off the board or whatever you do, which will happen with this surface mount stuff fairly easily if you're not careful, because everything's so miniature in these things. Yeah, we're getting quite high. Almost wants a solder sucker to take a bit of that solder off. This should be nearly out. That side's, ooh, have we taken that? No, just a bit of solder. Yep, that's come off, so it's not glued at all. Tiny little thing. Or have I taken the pin off the actual... Ooh, I might have damaged the switch. Where are they? Oh no, there, that's the two little... Are they still all there? I can't even tell, it's so fine. I guess as long as one side's connected it will be right, but you do have to be super careful with these things because you can't put a lot of heat into them. Got two tabs on that end. The other two don't look like they're there anymore, but I could be, oh no, I think they are. Really not a fan of this surface mount stuff, it's so small. But yeah, I think they're both there, they just for some reason aren't shining as much as they should. I've got two little tabs there and two there, you know, it's all intact I think, but you really need a magnifying glass on these things. And yeah, I'll leave a little bit of solder sticking up. It might make the switch sit up a little higher, but that's okay. It'll probably press a lot easier then. And now I'll go to the boot eject button or switch. It's actually the switch rather than the button, push button switch. And this sort of goes back to where it was. I need to hold that up a bit longer. Should really be doing this on my anti-static mat, I guess. Oh shit. A little bit of the switches just popped out, so that might not be the best technique. Hopefully that'll go back in that little button. Although at least it shows they come out. You may be able to... Oh, they're like a little sprung bit of metal. Whoops, it's moved now. Probably shows you could actually pull these apart and clean them. Oh no, now there's a little bit of metal loose on there. This is what I was afraid of. They're not the strongest little things. And where's my little pliers? So I wouldn't be surprised if I pulled that other one apart and cleaned it out, if it would actually fix a thing, but these are just sort of clipped in by the look of it, so hopefully I can just get that to pop back in there. Okay, so that one seems to be working. And then we're going to solder this other foldy switch back in. I haven't removed the solder yet. So I'll take the solder back off there. And back off those pads. Doesn't have to leave a little bit of a blob there just to give it something to melt into. And then we'll put a bit back on the soldering iron tip. So I've got a bit extra to melt into there. Hardest bit's trying to hold this thing straight. Okay, so I tested those and they seem to work alright with the multimeter. And we have the one switch there, so yeah, that definitely goes in that way. And that should go in there. It should clip back together, which it does. Battery and negative down by the look of it, so it's just got the positive up. Negative being the sort of smaller diameter bit. Positive is the bit that wraps right around the case sort of wraps right around. Oh, what do I do with the other screw there? Find the right screwdriver. Ah, get on there. Such miniature screws. Should really be using some of those little precision screwdrivers, but I find these big ones nicer to work with. But they don't fit in the screws quite as well. But at least you've got a decent handle on them. And always pays to magnetise it so the screw isn't dropping off, and you can pick it up with the screwdriver. And then just a matter of getting it the right way. That goes back in there. That clips back together. And that's it. You can put your key ring or whatever back on it. And I'll go and try this on the car and see if it's any better. Hopefully it operates it a bit more reliably now. I'll see. And yes, I just tried it on the car and it seems to be working alright. Seems to reliably work that button now. But I'll have to try it a few more times and see how it goes, but I think that's actually fixed the issue. So that's one way of getting it going again. I might see if I can find out whether I can get those little switches from anywhere. I did have a little set of switches off eBay somewhere. There we go. But I'm not sure it's any of those ones. You can get these little sets of switches. And let's, oh, no, they're a bit different I think, but that's the kind of style of switch. They got slightly bigger metal bits sticking out. They might actually be the ones. So let's have another look at this thing quickly. Where's that? It's hiding in that little top bit. I was hoping one of these switch kits might have some parts for these type of things. Okay. Geez, it doesn't want to come apart now. Just got to carefully prise it. So let's have a look. Knife blade again, I think, to prise that open. It doesn't want to come apart now, of course. That corner seems to work better. So that's the one up there. Yeah, that's it. So that's the one up above that unlock key. And then we pull out this whole rubber assembly, pull out the circuit board. And let's compare these switches to those switches. I'm not sure they're the same. Well, they're damn close. It's so miniature. I think they'll actually replace those. So that might be even better if I can put a whole new one in there. There's something a bit harder to work on here. Put some anti-static mat here, just to be sure. Of course all the screws are falling out now. And the button we want is that one there. I'll get some solder on there. Try the little trick of trying to lift that a bit. And it's going to break the switch again, I think. But I'm hoping this other one fits, because God, that's going to be a nightmare if it doesn't. After just getting this going again. Okay, I've got a blob of solder under that end. You should be careful to lift this with the white plastic rather than the black plastic. Come on. But it would be great if I could put a new switch in it. Come on. Out you come. It refuses to unsolder. It's always clinging to something. Okay, let's do that. Let's try one of these little 3x4 by 2.5mm 25 pieces. These other ones are 3x4 by 2.5, but they've got longer little solder pad things on them. So I'll try this one with the short solder pads that you can barely see. Barely stick out of the switch. It's got a and of course it shoots out of my hand. What I'll try and do, if I can somehow hold it still, you really need another hand to do this, This thing's just going to shoot off across the room at any opportunity it gets. I kind of need to hold those pliers, which of course they won't hold shut. But I would like to tin those if possible. Yeah, I can actually do it. I'm sort of holding it with a solder as soon as I get a bit on there. Yeah, that's it. Just got some slight, tiny little blob of solder on each pin. They tin straight away, which is always a good sign. Get the solder off the tip there. Might just put a bit of fluxy solder back on there, even though it wants to be fairly flat to the board. Now, ideally, I need to kind of hold that square to the pads. Of course, this board's got some the battery terminal sticking out the other side just to make it difficult. So it's going to rock around a bit. So I need to get that sort of centered. And then try and attach a couple of these, which I think I'd managed to do. And of course the switch is still twisted to one side a bit. Try and move it across. They never go where you want them to. This is part of the problem with surface mount. Okay, I've managed to move that a bit. Yep, perfect. So one side's sitting up a bit, so we'll just try and push that down. Probably isn't that important. This is actually easier to solder in than the original one. Even though it's a very precision little thing. I just hope I don't find out that's some sort of normally closed switch or something. Oh, damn, multimeter lead's getting a knot. Let's test it. If I can make a connection, it'd be good. So that's even better. Just make sure both sides are connected. That looks pretty well soldered in there, and I guess that other switch that I swapped over because it was faulty. I guess I've got to make sure these mechanically work the same. Let's just put it in there. They look the same, but that doesn't mean much in this world. And with these fiddly little things, yeah, it actually feels a bit nicer than the other one, which of all these have had a fair bit of use, so I guess in theory I should probably change a lot of them. But that's only really the one that was playing up. But since I swapped sides and then I sort of messed the other one up a bit, see if we can lift that up. So that one lifts up nicely. Doesn't break, doesn't do anything weird. Maybe just because it's I've soldered it on, it's not quite as hard to get off again. So let's get another one of those. Not easy to get out of the container even, so let's flip that over. Try and tin it again. Doesn't necessarily have to be done, but it's always nice to do it and get a little bit of flux and stuff on there. Yeah, these ones are a good replacement for the Subaru remotes by the look of it. Which is handy to know, that's why I bought that kit of switches. I was hoping it would come in handy for these sort of jobs. It since they're all sort of, they're not really the sort used in TV video type stuff so much, but they, even some of those little miniature switches are starting to appear in consumer electronics these days, especially with things like all these MP3 players and various audio things, Wi-Fi and stuff, audio players. They're not built like they used to be in the 90s and 80s and stuff. Now, if only I could get that to stay right where I want it. And that's one problem with having a little bit of solder on the board, is it doesn't always sit the best. I'll get one corner on and then try and line up the other side. Gives you enough swing room there. Oh, it doesn't look the straightest, but the pins are where I want them, I think. Try and get another one connected. And that one connected. And just press this one down a little lower, I think. That's it. That one was sitting up. There must have been a bit of solder spike on one of them. And so that's it. Just check it again with a multimeter. Always best to make sure you either haven't shorted it out for starters. You'll get some sort of reading across there by the look of it. 0.6, it maybe was a diode or something. Get on there. Oh, I can't get it to stay there. Yeah, that's working well. I'll just check the other side. They're probably only joined to each other or not joined to anything, but never hurts to check. Yeah, they're working well. Get them the right way around with that switch at the top. Like I say, really, you probably should change the third one. If I was doing this for a customer or something, I'd probably change a lot of them. And that way then they're not likely to come back again. They get their money's worth out of why you got it apart. You might as well charge them for an extra part and a slight bit more labour rather than have the thing play up again later and come back and then you've got to pull it all apart again and all that sort of messing around. But in this situation, I don't have to worry about that. Screws back in there, and other way around. It's kind of counterintuitive, that, but yeah, they got a nicer click than they had before. Click that back together. Those two little switches can go in the rubbish. But yeah, that little kit, just a made in China. You can find them on eBay under push button switch kits or something, I think. I can't remember, I came across them by accident somewhere, I think. 250 pieces. Maximum voltage 12 volt, up to 100,000 presses. Minus 50 degree to plus 80 degree C. But yeah, that little one up in the corner there was the one. This other version, basically the same switch with slightly longer tabs on it. And then there's a couple of like with just one tab each side, and a couple of other little red one there. That's more like something you'd used to find in TV sets and stuff. But it's a surface mount rather than through board. A few other little tiny ones. I think some of these have got mixed up. Some of those managed to get in the wrong thing. They might have arrived like that, I think. Little tiny 4-prong switches there, some really tiny ones. I can't even really get one to stick to my finger. And these more of the same here. These have got a bit mixed up over time. But yeah, they should do the job. I'll go and test it on the car again, see how it goes. Yeah, okay, I just tried that on the car again and that all worked fine. A bit more convincingly with the new switches in it. The boot one works fine, the open one works fine, and the closed one, which I didn't change. So it goes to show if you pull these switches apart, if you actually get your fingernail on the black bit rather than the white bit, you can break the switch. So yeah, that's something to avoid if you actually want to just change them from side to side. But for the sake of one of these little kits, which I think was only around $10, $15 or something, it's worth getting one of those and actually changing the switches out for some new ones. And that should keep that going for years now, hopefully. I don't know for sure about the quality of these switches, but it's got to be better than what's left of the old ones, which are obviously probably done hundreds, if not thousands, more likely thousands, I guess, of uses of presses. Was it a 2014 car, so it's going on the 10-year age, 8 odd years now, so that would have had thousands of presses in that time, I would think. But that hopefully will be as good as new. The battery's still fine. So normally, I guess if the battery goes on these, you probably find it doesn't work, or you've got to be really close to the vehicle or something. But if you've got sort of intermittent, this used to go up and press harder, and eventually it would unlock the car, but it wasn't just an instant thing most of the time. Well, it did seem once you used it and got it to go, it seemed to accept it again after that, but I'll try it again from cold and see, but I reckon this should be fine now. Thanks for watching.